Super Mario 3D All-Stars has been out for a full month, at least at the time of me writing this script. The game was rumored to be a real thing all the way back in March, when Video Games Chronicles came out with an article saying that a compilation of 3D Mario games was coming to the Switch on the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., along with the return to form for the Paper Mario series. Well, one part of that rumor wasn't true. So, on October 3rd, Super Mario 3D All-Stars was announced alongside Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, and Super Mario Bros. 35. It was revealed to include Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy all in one package, with them being upscaled to 1080p and optimized for the Switch. Now, was all that anticipation and speculation worth it? People freaking hate this game. Yeah, this game is pretty divisive. Some people think it's a good way to experience all three of these games on the Switch, others think it's a lazy cash grab. I, for one, am guilty of committing the former. I personally believe that it's not as bad as people make it out to be, and I think that it's fun for what it is. Now, before you all take to the comments and call me a Nintendo fanboy shill like so many other people who like the game have, let me just say, I understand a fair amount of criticism towards 3D All-Stars. However, that doesn't mean I cannot defend it, and that doesn't mean I cannot say good things about it. It's just my opinion. And if you can't handle opinions, then click off the video now. Anyways, this video is just going to be me going over aspects of 3D All-Stars, explaining why they're good, and responding to some critiques that people have with it. Without further ado, let's take a look at the game. Alright, when the trailer for 3D All-Stars went up, there was an outrage. Take a wild guess where. A. Twitter. B. Who cares what the rest are, because you know it's obviously A. The main reason being was the fact that the game was on a limited run. You guys all know this by now. Super Mario 3D All-Stars is apparently getting delisted physically and digitally on March 31st, 2021. AKA the day where Mario freaking dies! Honestly, what's there to say about this that hasn't already been said? We all know why this is garbage. Moving on. It was also revealed that the game uses emulation, which just got people even more upset. So yeah, a lot of people hate this 3D All-Stars collection. There are so many videos that pretty much pan the entire thing, talking about how it's so bare bones, the price is too high, and how scummy Nintendo has been. However, there are also some people who can tolerate it, myself included. There are some people who think that it's not that bad, the price is worth it, and that there's a lot of appeal and merits to 3D All-Stars. And in this video, I'm going to explain what those appeals and merits are, as well as defend some parts of the collection that people complain about. Anyway, let's get into it. Obviously, we are starting with Super Mario 64, which has received the least amount of alterations in this collection. One of the main things that has got people mad about Mario 64 is the lack of widescreen support. This is understandable. I really don't get why Nintendo bothered to give widescreen support to Sunshine, but didn't bother for Mario 64. Apparently, Nintendo's goal with this collection was to retain the original design and spirit of these games. I mean, I can understand the decision, but I'm pretty sure you can make Mario 64 widescreen and it wouldn't hinder that mindset at all. Especially since you did to Sunshine. Nintendo's logic is so darn weird. It's a weird design choice for sure, but to be honest, it never really bothered me all that much. I was still able to play just fine. Yeah, it's weird, but it doesn't really ruin the game. Another thing people hate is the lack of backwards long jump. Again, the game isn't unplayable without it, but it does kinda suck for the people who wanted to try speedrunning. Also, they removed the So Long Gate Bowser line. So long, Gate Bowser! Bye-bye! This applies for all the games, but Super Mario 64 is technically an emulated remaster. There are improved textures, upgraded HUD icons, font replacements, and updated button prompts. This was done to preserve the original art for each game in the collection, which also leads back into Nintendo's goal to preserve the original design and spirit of each game. This is a remaster, not a remake. Honestly, I'm completely fine with that. As long as I get to play this undeniable classic for the first time, I am totally down. As for my thoughts on the game itself, it has definitely aged in some areas. The game booting you from the stage every time you get a star can result in some irritating repetition for like 5 of the levels. Some of these stars are just not fun to get, and the game is really punishing in terms of screwing things up. Yeah, it's aged, but I'd say it's still a great game. Just messing around in all of the open levels is just good fun. And outside of the BS ones, the game's stars are pretty enjoyable to get. Any fan of platforms will find some enjoyment out of Mario 64. Besides, this game already wins truckloads of points for defining the 3D platformer genre, especially its groundbreaking innovations such as 360 analog control and a 3D camera system. That alone makes it one of the most influential and important games of all time, and I consider it a good time, even to this day. Now we come to Super Mario Sunshine, a game that actually has a lot of controversy surrounding it. Kinda like the collection itself. A lot of people adore the heck out of it, and there's an equal amount of people who absolutely detest it. You know what the craziest thing about this version of Mario Sunshine is, though? This is actually the very first time that this game has ever been re-released. Like, did Nintendo try to forget that Mario Sunshine even existed because they weren't happy with it, but upon seeing how many people love it, they were all like, nah, let's include it in a collection. Anyway, like Mario 64, Sunshine has had a few changes. Firstly, it is now in widescreen. You can now see a lot more, and it instantly modernizes this game. Secondly, like Galaxy, it is now in 1080p, which really makes its art style look so much better. Thirdly, the game did not originally support it, but as a result of a November 16th update, the game now can be played with the GameCube controller. However, strangely enough, the game doesn't run in 60 frames per second. Same goes for 64. That's a bit of a weird move. Like, I mean, you emulated these games after all, so shouldn't you be able to make them 60 frames per second as well? Again, Nintendo's logic is just incredibly weird. But anyway, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say that Super Mario 3D All-Stars is the definitive way to play Super Mario Sunshine. This game's graphics hold up beautifully, especially in HD. This is one of the best looking games on the GameCube, and it being in HD just makes it even more apparent. The water looks better than it ever has, the reflections look so much more convincing, the heat distortion is way more visible, and now that it's in widescreen you can see so many more details. And with the GameCube controller added, you have two ways to play the game. You want to play the original way, or do you want to play the game the new way? Now, what do I think of this game? Well, upon playing it for the first time when I bought this collection, I gotta say, it is nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. I believe it's a great game, I truly think it is. The world is so interconnected, so organic, it actually feels like a place where people live. The level design is also pretty good too. It's consistently interesting, and it leaves a lot up to the player in terms of the way they complete an objective. Every single way rewards you for having the skill to execute them. There's no perfect way to go about it. That is some great open world level design. Blood also adds so much to the game and makes for an excellent platforming tool. However, we all know what holds this game back. The game not being as open-ended as Mario 64, requiring you to complete each mission in order to beat the game, and not being able to skip missions that you don't like, and those godforsaken blue coins. However, if you're not trying to 100% the game, then I consider Mario Sunshine to be a much better experience than Mario 64. Most of the stuff you get during the post-game is just downright frustrating, while the stuff you get during the main campaign is overall pretty solid. In conclusion, Super Mario Sunshine is a great game, and I personally believe that 3D All-Stars has the definitive version of it. And so we come to the final game in this collection. Boy, have I been waiting to talk about this one. Basically, a lot of the changes made to Sunshine are applied here. The game is now in 1080p, except it's actually in 60 frames per second. It's in widescreen, like always, and you have multiple ways to play, except there's no GameCube controller. Here you can play with either the Joy-Cons, the Pro Controller, and in handheld mode, which I'm mentioning here because Galaxy has a specific function with the handheld mode. The Pro Controller takes a bit of time to get used to since you have to actually tilt the thing while moving around, but you will get used to it over time. The Joy-Cons are the closest thing to imitate the Wiimotes, but the thing is the cursor kinda drifts off when you're grabbing something like a Polestar, and that has caused me a few accidental deaths. But overall, it's pretty good. Now, handheld mode, I'm kinda split on. You have to use the touchscreen, and on one hand, it's pretty limiting, and it can mess you up when you're fighting something while there's star bits, but on the bright side, it makes grabbing pull stars an absolute breeze. Risk and reward, I guess. Also, they finally mapped Mario's spin to a button. While I was completely fine with swinging the Wiimote, I vastly prefer using a button. Man, it makes some stars that were an absolute pain so much easier now. Oh yeah, and here's the crazy thing about Galaxy that a lot of you might not know. It is the only game in the entire collection that wasn't emulated. Yeah, apparently Nintendo actually recompiled the game's code to run natively on Switch. That's pretty impressive, not gonna lie. It makes me wonder if they could have done that with Mario 64 and Sunshine. Anyways, I want to let you guys in on something. Before I got this collection, the last time I played Galaxy was over 10 years ago. I rented it after I first got my Wii on December of 2010 as a Christmas gift. And truth be told, this was the first main series Mario game and the first 3D platformer that I ever played. But I never finished it. Within the time I rented it, I was never able to beat the game. But now that I fully completed the game on this collection, I can now confidently say that Super Mario Galaxy is by far one of the best Mario games and one of the best games ever made. This game looks absolutely amazing, even on the Wii. It, along with games like Sonic Colors, were able to show that the Wii could produce some gorgeous modern graphics. And now that it's in 1080p, it looks so freaking good! Galaxy also has tight and incredible level design, experimenting with brilliant ideas. The gravity mechanic is such a blast to play with, and it works really well, and the game has such a strong variety with its levels that it never gets boring or repetitive. And the soundtrack, oh good lord, the soundtrack, it is killer, man. The orchestral soundtrack gives this game an epic feel, something that a lot of Mario games don't have. It rules. This game is absolutely fantastic. There's a good reason why this game is highly branded as one of the best games of all time. I honestly wish that I came back to this game sooner. It really feels like the Wii was holding this game back. Now, all of its highest points can truly shine. This game is just beautiful. Honest to God, if I had fully completed Mario Galaxy, it probably would have been my favorite Mario game. Super Mario Galaxy is just amazing, and like Sunshine, I'd say this is the definitive way to play this game. The spin is now finally mapped to a button, the already beautiful visuals are cranked up to HD, and the amazing quality of the game, this is currently the best way to play this game. Super Mario Galaxy is, and always has been, a masterpiece. Anyways, those are my thoughts on all of the games within the collection. The collection itself is not as bad as people make it out to be, at least in my opinion. There are a lot of complaints about the main menu. People claim that the menu looks bland and that it should have had more stuff. And you know what I gotta ask? Who the heck cares? I feel like this is the wrong thing to be complaining about. Like, does the menu really affect the game that much? Is it really that big of a deal? I feel like this is nitpicking rather than criticizing. But if we're going to discuss it this much, I might as well implement my own thoughts about it here. In my opinion, this menu is pretty good. It looks pretty classy. The way the numbers look, the tan frames, and the text font, all of this gives it a classic, old-timey aesthetic. It makes it feel like an anniversary title. Again, it's not that big of a deal, but that's where a sizable amount of criticism is thrown. I've also seen a lot of people compare 3D All-Stars to the Crash and Spyro remakes, which I kinda don't get. 3D All-Stars and Crash and Spyro are different things. One is a remaster, technically, and the other two are 6 games made entirely from the ground up. Can you really compare them? Furthermore, the games within 3D All-Stars were on different platforms and different engines. And with Crash and Spyro, those games all ran on the same engine and on the same platforms. Can you see the problems with this comparison? This also ties into the whole emulation argument going around. People say that you should just emulate the games instead, and there are some people who say that people are stupid for not doing so. Well, I'm not against recommending emulation. You can say the same thing about every other collection that people compare Mario 3D All-Stars to. Plus, not everybody likes emulating. People can play the games however they want. That's it. Plain and simple. You can recommend it, but don't insult them for not doing so. I'd also like to take a moment to talk about the detractors of 3D All-Stars. I've seen so many people who have been called Nintendrones, god that term is pathetic, brain-dead fanboys, or corporate shills. I've even seen someone get called a waste of skin, purely because he said he enjoyed playing these games. Disliking 3D All-Stars is fine. Voicing your displeasure is fine. Not buying the game is fine. But when you're shaming and discrediting others for buying and enjoying something, I gotta ask, how petty and pathetic can you be? If you want people to take you seriously and respect your opinions, then you shouldn't do that. Going to insult and label others simply for buying and enjoying a game that you don't like, that's utterly ridiculous and absolutely asinine. Look, you can say what you want about 3D All-Stars, but don't turn it into whether or not purchasing it determines your intelligence or your standards. Also, you should not try to dictate what other people should spend their money on and then demonize them for not doing exactly what you want them to do. Just because they don't think the same way you do, that doesn't give you the right to belittle them. Now, please understand, I'm not trying to generalize the people who legitimately criticize the collection, and not all of the detractors are toxic. I have talked to people who aren't toxic, and they are respectful of other people's opinions. I'm only talking about the people who are toxic. And to those people, put the petty crap aside and let people enjoy their games. Alright, back to the collection itself. Another thing people don't like about this collection is the price. Now I can definitely see why, but you have to understand this collection is for people who never got to play these games. Let's do some quick math. Let's say if you're new to gaming, the Switch is your very first console, and you want to play Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. But that would be expensive. Since the Wii Virtual Console is no longer available, without this collection, you would need to buy at least 2 systems, and you would need to pay even more to play all 3 games. The Wii, with backwards compatibility, costs $150. The Nintendo 64 costs $100, and the GameCube controller and memory card combined cost $40. A cartridge of Super Mario 64 costs about $20 to $48. Super Mario Sunshine costs $48 to $100, and finally Super Mario Galaxy costs $20. Add all of these up, and you would have to pay $378 to $458 just to play these 3 games. Do you see what I'm getting at? Would you rather play Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy on their separate consoles only to pay over $400? Or would you rather pay $60 to play all 3 games on one cartridge? Now, what I just said wasn't actually from me myself. This was from a person named Natendo. I thought his insight was pretty good, and I want to mention it in this video. I'll link his channel down in the description below so that you can check it out. But I want to ask you guys a question. Riddle me this. Imagine a reality in which no rumors came out about this collection. At all. Imagine if nothing about this collection was rumored about. Would this game really be as controversial as it is now? Because looking back, a lot of people had their expectations high once the rumors started popping up. If those rumors hadn't popped up, I highly doubt that people would be complaining about the collection itself, and only the limited release. Try to think about that for a while. Anyways, one of the main reasons as to why I believe this collection has managed to sell so well, outside of the limited release of course, is because of what I said before. This was for people who have never played Super Mario 64, Sunshine, or Galaxy. In fact, I'm willing to bet good money that the majority of people who bought the collection have never played them. A lot of people who have bought the Switch are either new to Nintendo or new to gaming altogether. And since there are classics that a lot of people love, they'll want to play them, and now that this collection is out, they finally have the chance to do so. And I say this as someone who has had a similar experience. I've never actually played Mario 64 or Sunshine, and as I mentioned earlier, I never finished Galaxy. I've beaten all 3 of these games with this collection, and I've had a lot of fun. Plus, the fact that you can play 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, 3 games that people have been screaming for to be playable on the Switch, games that have captured the hearts of millions, on the go, in your bed, while riding on an airplane, literally anywhere? Come on, who wouldn't want that? That, in my opinion, is why so many people have bought 3D All-Stars. And one more thing, these games in the collection remain great, and the fact that many people agree that they remain enjoyable, I believe this is the reason why Nintendo didn't go the extra mile. They knew that these 3 games hold their value. They knew they put in so much effort into these games the first time around, so did they really need to do more to make this work? Don't get me wrong, I still would have loved it, and it would have justified the $60 price tag a little bit more. But did they really need to? I do somewhat agree with the price being unfair, but not to the point where I wouldn't buy it. I don't feel like I've been ripped off since I had a really good time with these games. At the end of the day, in my opinion, it's the games that matter, and they sure didn't ignore that at least.